My stepmother asked for a Wenchang talisman for my younger brother who was about to take the college entrance examination. But I could tell at a glance that the talisman was very wrong, so I found an opportunity to secretly burn the talisman paper. As a result, my younger brother didn't even get into the third-level college, while the neighbor's child used the Wenchang talisman to get into a key university. After my stepmother found out, she tied me in the house with an iron chain and let the men in the village come in and out of my room. In 8 years, I gave birth to 8 children in a row and died of exhaustion. They didn't know that the talisman was clearly a life-borrowing talisman. Once used, it would pierce the intestines and become a human poison. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day before my younger brother's college entrance examination. My dear, I spent a lot of money to get this Wenchang talisman from a master for you. When you take the exam, carry this talisman with you, and you will definitely be admitted to a key university. When my stepmother's voice rang in my ears, I trembled uncontrollably. In my previous life, I was chained in a small house, trampled by men, and died tragically in a pool of blood. The scenes flashed through my mind. I blinked hard and looked at the people at the table in disbelief. My dad, stepmother, and brother, am I reborn? My dad pushed my favorite sweet and sour pork ribs in front of my brother. He said lovingly, "Lele, when you get into college, Dad will buy you the latest computer and mobile phone." My brother is a well-known troublemaker in the village. My dad spent a lot of money to send him to a private school in high school. But he is a hopeless case. He fights with others in school, skips classes, and bullies female students in the same class. His grades are even worse. Not only does my stepmother not blame my brother, she also hopes that he can get into a good university, so she spent a lot of money to ask for a Wenchang talisman for him. In my previous life, I took a closer look at the talisman, frowned and said to my stepmother, "This talisman is unlucky and will kill my brother. Throw it away quickly." But my stepmother slapped me instead and said, "Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. You are just jealous of your brother. You are afraid that he will get into a university better than you. You little bitch is as cheap as your mother." I covered my face with tears in my eyes. I thought that my brother was my blood after all, and I couldn't really watch him die miserably. So at night, while my brother was taking a bath, I took the talisman paper out of his pocket and burned it secretly in the yard. As a result, my brother didn't even get into junior college, while the son of the neighbor Aunt Fat used the Wenchang talisman and got into a top university. My stepmother almost beat me to death when she knew I burned the talisman paper. But she was afraid of going to jail, so she stopped in time when I was still alive and came up with a more cruel way to torture me. She locked me in the house with an iron chain and let men come in and out of my room. She told my counselor that I had depression and forced me to apply for a leave of absence. I was locked in a small dark house, and she would let men from the village in every day. To prevent me from hurting men, she pulled out my teeth. Because there was no contraception, I got pregnant soon after. The boy she gave birth to was sold to human traffickers at a high price, and the girl she gave birth to was thrown into the river and drowned. I tried to escape several times, but was caught by her. I died miserably after giving birth to my 8th child. Now that I am reborn, I want to see what will happen to my brother after using the magic charm. Just like in my previous life, I still can't help but ask, is this charm really useful? Is that expert a liar? My stepmother crossed her arms proudly and said, "How is it possible?" This expert calculated it at a glance. Lele fell into the urinal when he was a child and almost drowned. I also gave him Lele's birth date and 8 characters, and he said that our Lele is destined to be rich and powerful. I lowered my head and ate 2 mouthfuls of rice without saying a word. In my previous life, I met an old magic charmer from Southeast Asia when I was working part-time during the summer vacation. He said that I was born with a Yin body, took me in as an apprentice, and helped me open half of my eyes. So I saw at a glance that this Wenchang charm was fake, and it was a charm that was bewitched by the magic charmer. Master said that the steps of Jiang Tushu are Jiang and Tu. Jiang refers to the method of applying the medicine, and Tu refers to the individual being cast. The caster establishes control through the birth date, 5 elements, body hair and nails of the person being cast. When I heard my stepmother mention the birth date, I knew that my guess was right. My stepmother took out another pill from her bosom and handed it to my brother. The master also said that eating this elixir can open your wisdom, so hurry up, swallow it in one gulp. My brother swallowed the pill reluctantly and almost choked. He drank several sips of water before he could swallow it. I sneered in my heart. Jiang Tushi uses goo medicine as a primer to make people accidentally take it, which is toxic to the human body and achieves the purpose of control. This is not an elixir, it is obviously a poison that penetrates the intestines. My stepmother saw that my eyes were not right, and asked me in a shrill voice, "You damn girl, what bad thoughts are you thinking?" I hurriedly put on a smile and said, "I have heard that Wen Chang Fu is very effective, but it's a pity that no one prayed for me when I took the college entrance examination, otherwise I would not have passed the second-tier exam." I really envy my brother. My stepmother became more and more proud when I heard me say this. "How can you, a child without a mother, compare with my good baby? Fortunately, I married your father. If it were another woman, she would definitely not let you go to a second-tier university. Girls should go out to work and support the family early. Remember, after graduation, you have to hand over your salary to me to help your brother buy a house and a car, hear?" I nodded and said calmly, "Mom, I will not forget your kindness, and I will repay you in the future." But I was thinking in my heart, repay? Retribution is more like it. You just wait. After the exam, my brother went to the internet cafe to book a night. He called his stepmother and told her that the Wencheng talisman was indeed useful. He seemed to have opened up his Ren and Du meridians suddenly. He could do many questions, and it was as if he had the answers in his mind. His stepmother was so happy that she couldn't sleep all night. My brother stayed in the internet cafe for 3 days and 3 nights. When he came back, his eyes were dull. It was as if he had been drained of his energy and couldn't walk steadily. He said he felt sick, had chest tightness and dizziness, and kept scratching his arms. Soon, dense red rashes appeared on his snow-white skin. My stepmother frowned slightly and said, "It must be because you stayed up too late. The internet cafe was too dirty and caused skin allergies. Take a shower and have a good sleep. Mom will make you a delicious meal to replenish your body." After that, she went into the kitchen with the ribs. After they left, I leaned against the balcony wall with my arms folded, and a sneer appeared at the corner of my mouth. If you look closely, you will find that there is a bloodshot line running from left to right on my brother's eyeballs. Before long, he will become depressed and manic, and gradually lose his mind. I sneaked to a public telephone booth in town and called my boyfriend Lin Yu. When I heard his voice again, I almost choked. "Ting Ting, I heard that something happened in your family. Have you dealt with it? Is there anything I can help?" "Ting Ting, why don't you say anything? What happened to Ting Ting? Do you want me to find you?" My heart was throbbing with pain. In my previous life, my stepmother peeked at my diary. She found out that I was in love and told my dad about it. My dad beat me up and told me that unless Lin Yu could come up with a 1 million betrothal gift, he would not agree to our relationship. Lin Yu is an ordinary person like me. His parents are honest working-class people. How could they come up with a sky-high betrothal gift? I could only find a reason to break up with him. On the day of the breakup, he stood downstairs of my dormitory all night. His roommate also came to persuade me, saying that Lin Yu really loved me and he had planned our future. Later, my stepmother applied for a leave of absence for me, and Lin Yu came to my house to find me several times. I was locked in a small house, with my mouth sealed with tape. I heard my stepmother say to Lin Yu, "A toad wants to eat swan meat, but he doesn't even pee to see how much weight he has, and he wants to marry our Ting Ting. Are you worthy?" Lin Yu just begged humbly, "I just want to see how she is, please, aunt, let me see her." My mother pushed him out and spat at him, "Don't bother my Ting Ting anymore." When Lin Yu left disappointed, I struggled to the door, but the chains imprisoned me. I lay on the ground, and tears flowed silently. I really wanted to say, "Lin Yu, take me away, leave this hell on earth." Thinking back, I told Linyu that the real reason I came back this time was that my father arranged a blind date for me, and the other party was a middle-aged widower in his 40s or 50s. Linyu was stunned for 2 seconds on the other side of the phone, and then said angrily, just for a few 100,000 betrothal gifts, they sold their daughter. Are they still human? Don't worry, let me think about it. After hanging up the phone, my heart became more and more sad. Fortunately, I still have Linyu. He is the only life-saving straw I can grasp. Thinking of the wonderful life with him in the future, I couldn't help but smile. On the day when my brother's score came out, my stepmother and my father were squatting in front of the phone nervously. After listening to the manual broadcast, my brother almost jumped up with excitement. Mom, Dad, I got 671 points. Last year, the first in the city only got 650 points. My dad was so excited that he burst into tears, and he gave my brother a thumbs up and said, "My son has a promising future, and it's not in vain to raise you." My stepmother said happily, "It must be the Wenchang Fu that worked. My dear, you must carry it with you during this period until the admission results come out. Check your score to see if you apply for Tsinghua or Peking University." I stood in the corner and watched quietly. No one noticed that my brother had just covered his chest and gasped twice. Even he himself did not notice the strange changes in his body. From that day on, my stepmother would tell everyone she met that my brother was the god of literature. The villagers found it strange that my brother usually ranked last in the school, but he suddenly ranked first in the city. They even suspected that the college entrance examination questions had been leaked. My neighbor, Fatty, secretly pulled me to the wall and asked, "Did your stepmother use any dirty tricks? I saw that your brother looked very bad recently. He prayed for the Wenchang talisman. Didn't you pray for Zhang Feng as well?" I said puzzledly. Zhang Feng is Fatty's son. She has a son and a daughter, and they study very hard. But the strange thing is that her daughter jumped into the river and committed suicide 2 years ago. The villagers said that the pressure of studying was too great and she couldn't bear it. Later, she placed all her hopes on her son Zhang Feng. Oh, the Wenchang talisman. No wonder that thing is quite effective. My Zhang Feng also did well in the exam this year, just 20 points less than your brother. When Fatty heard about the Wenchang talisman, an unfathomable look flashed across her face. Fat's sister-in-law is a good person. When I was in prison last time, she often secretly sent me food. She wanted to call the police several times, but was threatened by my stepmother. So in this life, I am grateful to her. If I have the chance, I must repay her. As she was talking, my stepmother twisted her big butt to show off at Fat's sister-in-law's house. I have said it before, hard study is not as good as natural intelligence. Your son is far worse than my son. Fat's sister-in-law and stepmother have always been at odds, because of the vegetable plot behind the house, and they fight whenever they meet. She picked up a broom and chased stepmother out. You have done so many bad things, and you will be punished sooner or later. At this moment, a terrifying sound came, and Fat's sister-in-law and my mother stopped moving at the same time. They looked in the direction of my house at the same time, and it was my brother who howled strangely. Stepmother hurried home, and when she entered the door, she found my brother sitting in front of her dressing table, looking at the mirror with a weird expression. "Lele, what's wrong with you?" Stepmother walked towards my brother. At the moment my brother turned around, he stopped. My brother's eyes were red, and dark blood flowed from the corners of his eyes. His face was pale, and his teeth were clattering. I didn't know what he was chewing. There was an indescribable weirdness. My stepmother pushed my arm in fear. "Go see your brother." I subconsciously took 2 steps back and shook my head violently. "Mom, my brother is not right." My stepmother twisted my arm in anger. She mustered up the courage to go forward. Just as she was about to touch my brother's head tilted and fell on the dressing table. After my brother woke up, his eyes were no longer red, but there was still a red line in his eyes, which became more and more obvious. My father stood by the bed and said a little worriedly, "Is he possessed by evil spirits? Should we invite a witch to come to our house to take a look?" My stepmother wiped the sweat from my brother's forehead distressfully. No, Lele has the Wenchang talisman to protect his body, and ordinary evil spirits dare not approach him. It must be that his eyes are congested due to staying up late to play games recently. Look, he is better now. My brother blinked, as if he had lost his memory. He looked at the top of the mosquito net in a daze, and after a while he picked up the phone beside him and continued to play games, completely ignoring my father and stepmother. My stepmother breathed a sigh of relief. I said Lele is fine. But you can't play with your phone for too long, it hurts your eyes. My brother ignored her and focused on the game. I looked at my brother and always felt that something was wrong. He had always been impatient with my stepmother and my father before, but today he was like a fake person without emotions. The next day, just like in my previous life, my father arranged for me to have a blind date with an old widower from the neighboring village. He took me to the town for dinner and looked at me with a lecherous look. He wanted to touch my hand while eating, but I immediately pulled it back. The old widower stared at me and said, "Don't look at me at this age. I can be your father. I don't have children. I will spend all my money on you in the future. I will love you like a daughter, as long as you are virtuous and obedient." I almost vomited after hearing that, and slipped out under the pretext of going to the toilet. I found a phone booth and called Linyu to ask if he had any ideas. I have thought a lot these days. If Linyu is willing to marry me, I can steal the household registration book and get the marriage certificate with him directly. After graduating from college, I will fly away with him and never return to this home. But I called the phone several times, but no one answered. I thought it was a bit strange, because Linyu always kept his mobile phone with him. The phone book in my pocket fell to the ground. I bent down to pick it up and found a line of unfamiliar numbers on a certain page. Seeing that the handwriting was not mine, the words of my master in the previous life suddenly popped up in my mind. He said, "I will help you open half of the sky eye and teach you to identify evil and determine the poison. When you encounter danger, come to me and I will help you open the other half of the sky eye." At that time, he turned around and left after he finished speaking. I was still wondering where to find him in the future. I dialed this number for some reason. A hoarse and vicissitudes voice soon came from the other end of the phone. "Little apprentice, the flowers I waited for have all withered, and I finally waited for you." I didn't expect that master still cared about me. My nose was sore and I almost cried. I told him briefly about my brother using the life-borrowing charm. Master said you were right, he was indeed poisoned by someone. The red line in his eyes was a poison charm cast by a powerful magician. The bleeding in his eyes means that the poison has taken effect. If the charm cannot be removed in time, he will die. Is there any way to remove the charm? I asked curiously. Master thought I wanted to save my brother. He sighed and said, "Ting Ting, I know you are kind by nature, but everyone has their own cause and effect. You can't go against the will of heaven, otherwise you will suffer a disaster. But since I have accepted you as my apprentice, of course I still have to teach you something. If you meet it in the future, you can also use it. To remove the poison charm, you must find the magician who cast the charm. Force him to commit suicide or kill him, burn his blood into ashes and put it in wine, let the person who was cursed drink it, and the poison can be removed." After listening to what Master said, I suddenly realized. It turns out that the brother I stopped in my previous life caused the disaster. But there is one thing I can't figure out: who cast a spell on my brother? Is he going to deal with my brother, or is he going to deal with our family? If he is going to deal with our family, then wouldn't I be in danger too? Master saw that I didn't speak for a long time, and he was a little worried on the other end of the phone. "Don't go to the magician without authorization, it's too dangerous. I will leave for Lotus Village immediately, you wait for me at home honestly. And, don't eat anything who gives you these days." After hanging up the phone, a question flashed through my mind: how did the master know that I lived in Lotus Village? The old widower sent me home, bought a pack of good cigarettes for my father, brought a few bottles of wine, and gave my stepmother a gold chain. My stepmother was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. "Our Ting Ting is beautiful and good at studying. After graduating from college, she will definitely find a job in an office. There is no one better than her in the whole Lotus village. I can't count the number of people who come to my house to propose marriage with my 2 hands. The old widower took out a stack of 100 yuan bills and stuffed them into my stepmother's hand, and called out in a friendly voice with his missing tooth, "Mom, this is your son-in-law's gift to you." I immediately got goosebumps all over my body. It seems that even if I had not been imprisoned by my stepmother in the previous life, there would not be a good ending. I had better find a way to leave this home as soon as possible. In a blink of an eye, it was the day for my younger brother to fill in his application. My stepmother had already decided to apply for Tsinghua University. She also planned to hold a big banquet in the town and collect gifts. After filling in his application, my younger brother covered his stomach. My stepmother asked him where it hurt, and he said stomach for a while, then lungs. Anyway, all his internal organs hurt. My younger brother has been feeling unwell these days. He seems to have been hollowed out, and he is so thin that only a skeleton is left. My father realized the seriousness of the situation and hurriedly said, "I will go to the front room to ride a motorcycle and take him to the hospital for examination." My stepmother wanted to say that when Chang Fuhui would bless my younger brother, but seeing that he was sweating on his head, she was scared and said, "Okay, I'll go get the money." After they left, I went to Fat Sister's house. Fat Sister's house was the only one in the village with a telephone, so people in the village often went to her house to borrow a phone. I held Lin Yu's number and asked embarrassedly, "Fat Sister, can I make a call?" Fat Sister warmly grabbed my wrist, "Ting ting, don't worry, I steamed a big meat bun. It's just out of the pot, come and have one." As she said, she put a steaming bun in a bowl and handed it to me. I can't eat meat buns at home. Every time I go home to steam buns, I can only stand aside and watch. So I was drooling at this moment, just about to bite it. I remembered what the master said, so I put the bun on the table. "Fat Sister, I want to make a phone call before eating." Fat Sister's face flashed with doubt, but soon changed to a smile. "Okay, I'm just afraid that it will be cold and not delicious." I nodded, then picked up the phone, and the phone was dialed several times before the other side was connected. Lin Yu's roommate answered the phone. She said, "Hello, is this my junior from the medical department?" Lin Yu is taking a shower. I was stunned and said, "I am Zhang Ting." She blurted out, "Didn't you break up?" My heart sank and I realized something immediately. When I hung up the phone, Lin Yu's voice came from the other end, "I'm going out on a date later. Leave the door open for me tonight." Seeing that my expression was not right, the fat lady poured a glass of water and handed it to me, asking in a gentle voice, "Did you quarrel with your friends? Let's talk it over." I didn't expect Lin Yu to be such a fickle person. In the previous life, in such a situation, I still regarded him as a ray of light in my life. Why did he abandon me? He was trying to help me find a solution just a few days ago. Too many doubts lingered in my mind, and the extreme disappointment made my heart ache and I couldn't breathe. I took the water cup and gulped down a few mouthfuls, said thank you, fatty, and then walked out with a dazed mind. My brother stayed in the intensive care unit for a week, and the hospital issued several critical illness notices. The doctor said that his stomach was full of maggots, and the worms were about to eat up all his internal organs. He had to have an operation to pick out all the worms quickly, otherwise he would die of stomach ulcers. He also said that he had never seen such a disease before, and he couldn't find the cause. Asked my stepmother if my brother had eaten something unclean by mistake. My mother's face turned pale at the time, and she waved her hands and said in a crying voice, "No, I made everything Lele ate and drank." My father paid tens of thousands of yuan, and he was sad and painful. He said to his stepmother, "I said Lele was not right. How could a normal person have maggots in his stomach? It must be evil spirits, you just don't believe it. If you spend this money in the hospital and can't cure it, you will lose both your money and your life." I saw that my stepmother was in a panic, so I whispered to her, "Mom, didn't you ask the master for a Wenchang talisman for your brother? Or you can contact that master again?" My stepmother's eyes lit up, "Yes, go ask the master." My stepmother went back to the ward, picked up her bag and left in a hurry. After a long time, she brought back a middle-aged man in a black tiger-patterned gown, who claimed to be a white magician from Southeast Asia. Standing in front of my brother's bed, he reached out and flipped his eyelids, and then said solemnly, "This child has been cursed. If you don't remove the curse, I'm afraid the gods can't save him. This is a hospital, and it's not convenient for me to perform rituals." My father immediately understood and hurried to go through the discharge procedures. The doctor disagreed at first, saying that my brother would not survive tonight if he didn't have surgery. My father insisted on being discharged, and the doctor could only respect and bless him. After arriving home, my stepmother and my father put my brother on the bed. I don't know if it was my illusion, but I could vaguely smell a rotten smell. The White Master chanted a spell to my brother. After a long while, my stepmother asked anxiously, "Master, our family has not made enemies with others. Who wants to harm my baby? Your son really has never done anything wrong?" The White Master stroked his beard and asked the stepmother with sharp eyes. The stepmother turned away a little guilty. "Children will definitely make some mistakes, but don't worry, there is definitely no murder or arson." My father asked, "Master, have you figured out who cast a spell on my son?" The White Master took out a yellowed black and white photo from his sleeve and handed it to my father. "Look, do you recognize this person?" My father was obviously stunned when he saw the photo. "Isn't this him? Isn't he dead?" I squinted and looked over, and when I saw the photo clearly, I was stunned. The person in the photo is clearly my master. At this moment, my mind was full of thoughts. Why would the master cast a spell on my brother? It seemed that my father knew him before. Why did he approach me? He also helped me open my third eye. What was his purpose? Thinking of this, my mind was about to explode. After seeing the photo, my stepmother twisted my father's arm. "It's all your fault. You killed my baby." Then she looked at Master Bai with tears in her eyes. "Master, what should we do now?" Master Bai said, "I will take out the poisonous insects in your son's body now, but this will cost me a lot of energy. You decide how much you want to pay." My stepmother immediately understood, turned back to the house, took out a thick envelope and said, "Thank you for your hard work. If it's not enough, I will go get more." After Master Bai received the money, he drove us all out. I walked under the big tree in the yard and listened to the cicadas. Suddenly, I felt a headache and my hands and feet were itchy. I thought to myself, maybe it was because I didn't sleep well last night. Somehow, I always felt that someone was whispering in my ear last night, and I always had some strange dreams. I dreamed that I went to school with Su Meng Meng, the daughter of Fatty's sister, when I was a child, and I also dreamed that she came to my house to do homework. Half a day later, the white-haired master opened the door and came out with a bowl of black water. My stepmother and my father went to meet him. He said, "I have refined the poisonous insects in the child's stomach. If you want to completely remove it, you have to find the black magician who cast a spell." My father looked embarrassed, but he is obviously dead. I listened to their conversation on the side, thinking that the master was about to come to Lotus Village, and I had to stop him quickly. But I just took 2 steps, and suddenly I felt a cramp in my stomach, and my legs softened and I fell to the ground. Seeing this, the white magician hurried over. He picked up my arm and found a faint black line on it. He was shocked and said, "Oops, you have also been cast a spell." I was stunned. Master Bai said, "Have you ever given your birth date to anyone?" I recalled that in my previous life, my master said that he had to look at his birth date to accept a disciple, and I gave it to him. But I didn't dare to tell Master Bai, so I could only shake my head. No. "Have you eaten food given by strangers recently?" he asked again. "I haven't been to any other place except Fatty's house and the hospital recently. I only drank a sip of water at Fatty's house," I muttered to myself. "Wait, is there something wrong with the water? But Fatty has no reason to harm me. In my previous life, she often came to bring me food secretly. Apart from Master, she is the only person who treats me well. I am thinking about it. My brain is about to smoke." At this time, my stepmother suddenly remembered something, pointed at Fatty's yard, and said angrily, "It must be the bitch next door." She is jealous that I live a better life than her, and that my son scores higher than her son, so she teamed up with that person to harm our family. My stepmother wanted to go to the fat sister-in-law's house to ask for an explanation, but was stopped by my father. He lowered his voice and almost squeezed out the words from his teeth, "There is no evidence, don't let the neighbors laugh at you. Besides, if the matter is dug up, it will not be good for Lele." When my stepmother heard about that matter, her arrogance immediately subsided. In the evening, I forced myself to go to the back mountain to cut grass and feed the pigs. I only heard rustling in the grass, and I thought it was a rabbit, a fox, or something. Just as I was about to dig to see, a figure suddenly jumped out. I was so scared that I threw away the sickle and collapsed on the ground. When I saw the man's appearance clearly, I stammered, "Master, master." He glanced at the black line on my wrist and frowned, "Didn't I tell you not to eat things given by others? How did you still fall for it?" I am not sure whether he is a good person or a bad person. He takes a step closer to me, and I take a step back. He asked with a trembling voice, "Master, how do you know I live in Lotus Village? You know my father, right?" The master paused slightly, with an intriguing expression on his face. He stretched out his hand to me, "Ting Ting, master will not harm you. If I wanted to harm you, I would not help you open your third eye." Seeing that I did not believe him, he said again, "Think about it carefully, we have met several times before. You also invited me to dinner. It would be easy for me to harm you. Why wait until today? I came here to save you." He made sense, and I was just about to climb his arm and stand up. Another figure came from a distance, and Master Bai reminded me anxiously, "Ting Ting, he is the one who cast a spell on you and your brother, and he is also your father's enemy. You can't trust him." I retracted my hand as if I was electrocuted, looked at Master, and then at Master Bai, and was completely stunned. "You are an evil person who takes people's money and kills people, and you dare to slander my innocence." Master lifted up his robe and pulled out the posture of performing a ritual. The white master was not to be outdone, and the two confronted each other for several rounds. The master was sure to win, but at the critical moment, the white-haired master suddenly removed his head, and the bloody head flew over and bit the master's neck. I was stunned, watching from the side. Is this the flying head curse that the master once talked about? The veins on the master's forehead bulged, and he stretched out his hand to me in pain, "Ting Ting, save me." I froze in place and dared not move. I watched the white master subdue the master and then tied him up. It was dark when I got home. The white master dragged the master into the yard with a rope. When my stepmother saw the master's face change drastically, she asked in horror, What is this?" My father was also shocked and speechless. The white master tied my master to the big tree in the yard. "This is the black master who cast a curse on your son. Wait until the early morning, I will kill him with a ritual, to help you remove the curse." After dinner, the white master said he would go to the town to buy some things for the ritual, so that we could keep a good eye on the master. I was squatting under the window of my brother's room in a daze, and suddenly I heard my stepmother scream. I stood up and looked through the window, and saw that my stepmother's arm was bitten by my brother. My father heard the sound and ran out of the kitchen and asked, "Ting Ting, what happened?" I don't know how to describe the strange scene in this room. I was dumbfounded. My father was also scared. He didn't react until my stepmother shouted for help, and he ran into the house. I saw that my brother's eyes were bright red, his body was festering and pus was flowing, and there was no breath of life. And my stepmother's arm had been bitten by him into a bloody mess, revealing the white bones. He was still chewing with relish in his mouth, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. "Save me!" My stepmother cried loudly, "Save me!" My father bent down and picked up a bench and threw it at my brother, but he didn't seem to feel any pain. He just shook his body for a while, and then bit my stepmother's neck again. I know that my brother has become a human goo. He didn't remove the curse at all, he died long ago. Now his stomach is full of poisonous worms, which have eaten out his internal organs, leaving only an empty skin. Master said that the first thing that the human goo eats is the parents. Seeing the miserable state of my stepmother, my father was stunned for a moment, trembling all over, and was about to run away. But he was still caught by the human goo, and he lay on the ground and stretched out his hand to me. Ting ting, save me. I stood there without moving. With tears in his eyes, he begged, I am your real father. Seeing that I still didn't respond, he tore off his disguise. You beast, I raised you in vain. I retreated to the door step by step, with a sneer on the corner of my mouth. Dad, you killed my mother and uncle in order to marry my stepmother, and now your retribution has come. How do you know? He opened his eyes in disbelief. As soon as he finished speaking, he was bitten off the neck by the human goo with a snap. I locked the door of the main room from the outside, and just turned around. I saw the white magician swaggering into the yard. He said triumphantly, my human goo is about to be cultivated. Just kill another altar of the head-falling master. Ting ting, I want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have never been able to find my junior brother. After saying that, he glanced at my master. The master said expressionlessly, you and I are from the same school, but you use black magic to harm people. Aren't you afraid that the master will punish you? The white master shook his head and said disdainfully, the master has been in seclusion for many years. Maybe he died in a gutter. Now let me revive the master school. As long as the human goo is practiced, I will be the most powerful black magic master in Asia. As he cast a spell on me, my hands and feet were immediately unable to move. He walked up and stuffed a dagger in my hand, then pointed at the master and ordered me, go, kill him. My eyes were gray, and I could only see the shadow of the master was a touch of scarlet. Go. He used the black magic again. I held the dagger, but my feet did not move. I turned around and stabbed the white master in the chest. Maybe it was because the incident happened suddenly, Master Bai didn't have time to dodge. He opened his mouth and looked at the dagger on his chest in astonishment. How can you not be controlled by me? Because she was not bewitched from the beginning. At this time, Master loosened the rope, stood up and hooked his hand at me. Come to Master quickly. I trotted over and stood side by side with Master. You two, Master and apprentice, teamed up to deceive me. Master Bai pulled out the dagger from his chest, and the door behind him was knocked by the human goo. To be precise, it was the uncle and the niece. Master and I smiled at each other. No matter who you are, you must die today. With a roar from Master Bai, the door of the main room was broken by the human goo. The human goo had eaten 2 people and had become 2 meters tall. He was covered with insects and looked very creepy. Master subconsciously protected me behind him and said to me, Ting Ting, you run first. I ran to the gate and found that the bolt could not be pulled at all. It should be because of the magic cast by the white master. The human goo came towards me, and every footprint was dripping with smelly corpse oil. I stood close to the gate, watching the master and the white master fighting in fear. I thought, it's over, I finally lived again, and my life is going to be over again. Just as the human goo was about to approach, the master tied his arm with a thin fishing line. With a force, his arm was removed, and a large number of insects and black corpse water gushed out. Accompanied by an indescribable stench, I covered my chest and almost vomited. The human goo creaked and walked towards the master again. Master! I shouted anxiously. I saw that he soon ran out of strength and was stepped on by the human goo. The white master got a torch from somewhere and pretended to light his clothes. I told you that you can't beat me. I ran over to stop the white master, but he pushed me to the ground with a palm. At the critical moment, an old man in white clothes with tiger stripes fell from the sky and twisted off the head of the white master. Evil disciple, don't stop. The head of the white master was in his hand, his face changed with fear, and his lips trembled as he said, Master, Master. The old man bit his finger, drew a talisman in the air, and hit it on the human goo. The human goo shrank instantly and turned into a pool of corpse water. No, no. The head of the white master screamed shrilly. The old man picked up the body of the white master with his other hand and said to me and the master, I will deal with this evil disciple myself, you stay and clean up. The master knelt down and kowtowed to him solemnly, Thank you for coming to rescue me. After the old man left, the master set fire to the yard. When we walked out of the gate, we saw a dark shadow squatting in the corner. "Come out, Fatty sister," I said coldly. Fatty sister walked out with her head shrunk, not daring to look up at me. Watching the fire gradually burning in the yard, I asked calmly, "You hired a sorcerer to cast a spell on my brother, right?" The fat wife raised her head with tears in her eyes. "Ting, you know everything. It was your brother who killed my daughter first. I just wanted revenge. I didn't want to hurt you, it was the sorcerer who forced me to do it." I didn't say anything. In my last life, I was locked up in a small room and heard my stepmother and my father quarreling. My father mentioned my brother, who bullied a female student in high school. He said that the girl later jumped into the river and committed suicide, so I guessed that it was Auntie Pang's daughter. Auntie Pang didn't expect that I would burn the magic charm and be imprisoned by my stepmother. She felt guilty about me, so she often secretly came to bring me food. As for why she didn't call the police to save me in the last life, it was because our village was remote and backward. Many women were abducted from other places, and the villagers assumed that women could be imprisoned. Once someone called the police, they would be ostracized by the villagers. Auntie Pang was a widow with a son, and she couldn't afford this price. So I could understand Auntie Pang's difficulties, patted her hands, and said calmly, "They are all dead, and my master and I will leave here soon, and everything is over." The fire burned until dawn, and my master and I had already taken a long-distance bus to the provincial capital. The master stuffed a bag of hot roasted chestnuts into my hand and asked, "What are you going to do next? Will you come with me?" "Uncle, I'm still used to calling you master." I shook my head and said, "I want to finish college first, and then work to earn money while preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination." The master glanced out the window, "Then remember to call me often and come to see me more often when you are free. Also, the things I taught you cannot be used indiscriminately, otherwise it is easy to attract trouble." I nodded. After returning to school, I calmed down and prepared for the final exam. I rented a house near the school during the summer vacation, working part-time while reading books and preparing for the exam. In the second half of my senior year, I finally passed the entrance exam for a graduate student at a key university. One day I came out of the library and met Lin Yu again. He was deliberately squatting on me. When he saw me, he hurried over and handed me the milk tea in his hand. He said, Ting, "I'm sorry. It was a junior sister from the medical school who pestered me before. I have made it clear to her. Can you forgive me?" I was a little speechless. Some time ago, he waited downstairs of the dormitory every night, and made a heart with candles, confessed to me, and shouted that he loved me forever, so that the whole building knew that he was my ex-boyfriend. I couldn't bear it any longer, so I took him to the playground. I found a remote corner, hugged my arms, and asked impatiently, "You were the one who cheated on me, how dare you bother me now?" Lin Yu hugged me. Ting, "I didn't want to break up with you from the beginning. It was my mother who heard that your family wanted hundreds of thousands of betrothal gifts, and felt that your original family was not good, so she forced me to break up with you. I was in a bad mood during that time, so I let my junior sister take advantage of the situation. Now that you are back and have been admitted to graduate school, my mother will definitely agree to let us be together. Let's start over, okay?" I broke his hands and almost laughed out of anger. "Lin Yu, can you have some shame? You can't control yourself and put all the faults on others. Do you have any responsibility as an adult?" After that, I turned and left. I was really blind, treating such a person as a life-saving straw, and thinking about getting a marriage certificate with him as soon as I graduated. However, I also want to thank him for letting me stop the loss in time. Women are independent and the world is wide. Dependence on others will only jump from one fire pit to another. It's September again, and I'm busy with graduate school admissions. My college roommate called me and said, Ting, it's a good thing you didn't agree to get back together with Lin Yu. Lin Yu, that scumbag, got my junior sister from the medical school pregnant. He secretly checked the gender and found out it was a boy. The girl's family asked for a 1 million yuan dowry, otherwise they would abort the child. Now the two families are arguing. The junior sister is threatening to jump off the building to commit suicide. Lin, you will have a hard time for the rest of his life. My roommate gloated over the phone, but I didn't feel anything because he no longer had a place in my heart. I opened my notebook and wrote down a sentence I saw in a book recently. Life is like a dark room, but it doesn't stop me from writing spring poems. My life is up to me, I walk alone, and good times will come after bad times. The end.